3, 2, 1. Hello YouTube, Otaku here. We're going to be getting back into it with page 1, actually. We are doing a full circle roundabout to the Grapes of Wrath beginning entries because I started this at page 80, the YouTube segment of this book, where I decided that it would be in the best interest of other people that I create this video series and shed some thoughts and perspectives onto, let's just be honest, a terrific created book. And John Steinbeck deserves a lot of recognition for the things he's done in people's own special way. I hope that there are lots of others that find ways to pull tribute towards his success. Me personally, I'm going to merge my life and the things that I hold dear into parts with the book that I'm sure anybody could sit there and appreciate. So my thoughts, my reactions, my smoking habits, my water ingestion. Please don't forget that I'm going to be a personal narrator for today. My name is Otaku. I have my eucalyptus inhalation ritual right in front of me. We're going to continue off just like before. If you haven't been onto this channel before, please go ahead and check out my channel description. That will give you all the information about who and what this channel is made for. Also, I just hope this year is going great. Great for you, great for me. Let's start the ritual. Clink, clink, clink. Yeah, like I said, hydration check. Published by the Penguin Group LLC, 375 Hudson Street, New York. To Coral, who willed it. To Tom, who lived it. Okay. A note on the text. The 75th anniversary edition of The Grapes of Wrath is based on the special 15th anniversary edition of the novel, which reproduced the original text published in the 1939 by the Viking Press. Alright, so now that we have a little bit of backstory of where this book is coming in, so it lasted over from 1939's original publication to the 75th, and I'm sure there's going to be 100 and 125th edition to these books. Chapter 1. To the Red Country and part of the Gray Country of Oklahoma, the last rain came gently, and they did not cut the scarred earth. The plows crossed and recrossed the rivulets marks. So just like any other time within this video series, I'm going to sit there and take words that I have not been accustomed to. So if it doesn't come to my head off the top of my head, I'm going to write it down. RIVULET. I'm going to look this up later while we continue our journey. The rivulets marks. The last rains lifted the corn quickly and scattered weed colonies and grass along the sides of the road, so that the gray country and the dark red country began to disappear under a green cover. In the last part of May, the sky grew pale, and the clouds that had hung in high puffs for so long in the spring were dissipated. The sun flattened along the edges of each gray bay day under a line of brown spread along the edge of every gray bayonet. See, I know what bayonet is. I don't need to put that down. The clouds appeared and went away, and in a while they did not try anymore. The weeds grew darker green to protect themselves. They did not spread anymore. The surface of the earth crusted, a thin, hard crust, and as the sky became pale so that the earth became pale, pink in the red country and white in the gray country. In the water-cut gullies, the earth dusted down in dry little streams. Gophers and antlions started small avalanches, and that the sharp sun struck one day after another. The leaves of the young corn began less stiff and erect. They bent in a curve at first, and then, as the central ribs of strength grew weak, each leaf tilted downward. Then it was June, and the sun shone more fiercely. The brown lines on the corn leaves widened and moved on the central ribs. The weeds frayed and edged back towards their roots. The air was thin and the sky more pale, and every day the earth paled. Period. In the roads where the teams moved, where the wheels milled the ground and the hooves of the horses beat the ground, the dirt crust broke and the dust formed. Every morning things lifted the dust into the air. A walking man lifted a thin layer as high as his waist. The wagon lifted the dust as high as the fence tops, and an automobile boiled a cloud behind it. The dust was long and settling back again. When June was half gone, the big clouds moved up and out of Texas and into the Gulf. High, heavy clouds, rain-headed. The men on the fields looked up at the clouds and sniffed at them, and held wet fingers up to sense the wind. And the horses were nervous while the clouds were up. All right, we're at page 2. Just gonna get myself another smoking real quick. Extending my free will. Clink, clink. It's really good. Whatever strain that is, it's really good. Let's see. Alright. And the horses were nervous while the clouds were up. The rain had dropped, a little spattering, and hurried on to some other country. Let's try that again. The rain had dropped, a little spattering, and hurried on to some other country. Behind them, the sky was pale again, and the sun flared. In the dust, there was drop craters where the rain had fallen, and there were clean splashes on the corn, and that was all. A gentle wind. I want to read this like I do all the other ones. Honestly, I'll give it a shot right now. I'm just a little nervous because we're restarting this book. The gentle winds followed the rain clouds, driving them on northward, a wind that softly clasped the drying corn. A day went by and the wind increased, steady, unbroken by gust. The dust from the road fluffed up and spread out and fell onto the weeds beside the fields. and fell into the fields a little ways. Now the wind grew strong and hard, and it worked on the rain crust in the cornfields. Little by little, the sky was darkened by the mixing dust, and the wind fell over the earth, loosened the dust, and carried it over. The wind grew stronger, the rain crust broke, and the dust lifted up and out of the fields, and drove gray plums into the air like sluggish smoke. The corn threshed the wind and made a dry, rushing sound. The finest dust did not settle back to earth now, but disappeared into the darkening sky. The wind grew stronger, whisked under stones, carried up straws and old leaves, and even little clods, marking its course as it sailed across the field. The air and the sky darkened, and then the sun shone redly, and there was a raw sting in the air. During a night, the wind raced faster over the land, dug cunningly among the rootlets of the corn, and the corn fought the wind with its weakened leaves until the roots were freed by the prying wind, and then each stalk settled wearily sideways towards the earth and pointed to the direction of the wind. The dawn came, but no day. In the gray sky a red sun appeared, a dim red circle that gave a little light, little dusk, and that day advanced. The dust slipped back towards the darkness, and the wind cried and whimpered over the fallen corn. Men and women buddled in their homes, and they tied handkerchiefs over their nose when they were out, and wore goggles to protect their eyes. When the night came again, it was a black night, for the stars could not pierce the dust to get down, and the window lights could not evenly spread beyond their own yards. Now the dust was evenly mixed with the air, an emulsion of dust and air. I could probably defer that emulsion is like combining or a mixture or something of that sort, but since I've never seen that word before, I'm going to go ahead and just write it down. emulsion. Emulsion. Yeah, anyways. Of dust and air. Houses were shut right and the clothes wedged around doors and windows, but the dust came in thinly so that they could not be seen in the air, and it settled like pollen on the chairs and tables and on the dishes. The people brushed it from their shoulders. Little lines of dust laid on the door sills. In the middle of the night, the wind passed on and left the land again. The quiet filled air muffled sounds more completely than fog does. The people laying in their beds heard the wind stop. They awakened when the rushing winds were gone. They laid quietly and listened deep into the stillness. Then the roosters crowed, and their voices were muffled, and the people stirred restlessly in their beds and wanted the morning. They knew it would take a long time for the dust to settle out of the air. In the morning the dust hung like fog, and the sun was red as ripe new blood. All day the dust sifted down from the sky, and the next day it sifted down. An even blanket covered the earth. It settled on the corn, piled up on top of the fence posts, piled up on the wires. It settled on roofs, blanketed the weeds and trees. The people came out of their houses and smelled the hot stinging air and covered their noses from it. And the children came out of the houses, but they did not run or shout as they would have done after a rain. Men stood by their fences and looked at the ruined corn, drying fast now, only a little green shone under the film of dust. The men were silent, and they did not move often, and the women came out of the house and stand beside their men to feel whether their time with the men would break. It's so crazy. I remember the ending where like the women studied the men's faces secretly, for the corn could go as long as something else remained. Throughout this whole book, it was just mentioned constantly of the women of the group of different sorts just being, yeah, we're smoking again on page 3. Yeah, the women were just constantly looking towards the men like, hey, has life gotten you yet? And they're just like, no. The women are like, good, keep pushing. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But the the same time, that's got to be one of the hardest pills to swallow, are those moments of when you have to actually question whether somebody's like just broken, giving up. It's like, shoot, again. It's like, again, like, it's like, and you're just in this limbo of uncertainty, hoping that somebody else is going to get themselves out of their own uncertainty so that you're certain of that person's certainty, which is admirable. Dependent. Some may call that a weakness, but I'd call that in the right situations revelating. Because when that person does figure it out and you trusted that person, and they trusted you, and you two both could find it in your... Glad I have friends. Hello, Predator. Hello, Molto. You both just texted me at the same time. If somebody is going through a rough time and you're praying for their success, Godspeed in your efforts of faith and that person's efforts of goodwill, because it can very easily just turn into, I'm done. Good luck to you. Good luck to me. Goodbye. Sometimes forever. Sometimes goodbye for now. Let's smoke. I see. Oh, I think I just fixed all my problems. Yes, sirree. Well, not all of them, but I just fixed my main center problem. Yeah, I don't want to sit there and say I fixed all my problems, because trust me, they're going to keep coming, and they're still here. Alright, page 3, paragraph 3, sentence 5. The children stood nearby, drawing figures in the dust with bare toes, and the children sent exploring senses out to see whether men and women would break. The children peeked at the faces of the men and women, and they drew careful lines in the dust with their toes. Horses came to the watering trodes. Sadly, we're gonna be, not sadly, you know what? Happily, I will put this word down, and I do not know off the top of my head what the horses went to. Horses came to the watering trods. I'm sure that has something to do with water, but to have the definition off the top of my head, this is necessary. Trods. Nose. And nuzzled the water to clear the surface dust. After a while, the faces of the watching men lost their bemused perplexity. Yeah, I looked up both the word bemused and perplexity. When I first did this, those were like the first two true words I put in, bemused and perplexity. Because I was like, I know complexity, but perplexity I didn't know off the top of my head. So I had to give in to my humility and look the word in. And became hard and angry and resistant. Then the women knew that they were safe and that there was no break. So, it's so weird. When men get angry, women know that they're safe. Then they ask, "What do we do?" ? And the men replied, "I don't know. It was all right." The women knew it was all right, and the watching children knew it was all right. Women and children knew deep in themselves that no misfortune was too great to bear. Their men were whole. The women went into the houses to their work, and the children began to play, but cautiously at first. As the day went forward and the sun became less red, it flared down on the dust-blanketed land, and the men sat in the doorways of their houses. Their hands were busy with sticks and little rocks, and the men sat still, thinking, figuring out. Chapter 2, page 5. A huge red transport truck stood in front of the little roadside restaurant. The vertical exhaust pipe muffled softly, and almost invisible haze of steel blue smoke hovered over its end. It was a new truck, shiny red, and 12-inch letters on its side, Oklahoma City Transport Company. Its double tires were new, and brass padlocks stood straight out from the hasp on the big back doors. Inside the screened restaurant, a radio played, and quiet dance music turned low the way that it went. No one could listen. A small outlet fan turned silent. Ugh. That's one thing my body's just gonna have to get used to, is the hiccups from fast reading. I'm sorry, body, but it's necessary in our daily lives. So either sink or swim. Fan turned silently to the circular hole over the entrance. As flies buzzed excitingly about the doors and windows, budding the screams inside. One man, the truck driver, sat on the stool and raised his elbows on the counter. One looked over his coffee at a lean and lonely waitress. He talked the smart, listless language of the roadsides to her. I seen him about 3 months ago. He had an operation, cut something out. I forgot what. And she didn't see no longer. Well, that's where it cuts off. And she cut off. Don't see no longer ago than a week I had seen him before. Oh, it's still. I see what's happening. There was 2 quotations happening right now. I was getting confused to where it stopped and where it ended. I seen him about 3 months ago. He had an operation. Cut something out. I forgot what. Don't see no longer ago that a week I'd seen him myself. Looked fine then. He's a sort of a nice guy. We ain't stinko. Stinko. Oh, fuck it. Anyways, I'm not going to talk crap about that. Just, that's the lingo back then. Stinko. I really want want to hit him with the stinko of my own. Anyways, now and then the flies roared softly at the screen door. A coffee machine spurted steam, and the waitress, without looking, reached behind her and shut it off. Outside, a man walking along the edge of the highway crossed over and approached the truck. He walked slowly to the front of it, put his hands on the shiny fender, and looked at the "No Rider" sign on the windshield. For a moment, he was about to walk on down the road, but instead he sat on the running board of the sideway from the restaurant. He was not over 30. His eyes were very dark brown, and there was a hint of brown pigment in his eyeballs. It's fucking Tom! It's fucking Tom! That's who he's talking about. That's who we're describing right now. His eyes were very dark brown. There was a hint of brown pigment in his eyeballs. His cheekbones were high and wide, and a strong, deep lines cut down his cheeks. And curved beside his mouth, his upper lip was long. In a sense, his teeth protruded, his lips stretched to cover them. For this man kept his lips closed. His hands were hard, his broad fingers and nails were thick, and a rigid little clamshells. The space between thumb and forefinger and the hands of his hands were shiny with callus. The man's clothes were new, all of them cheap and new. His gray cap was so new that the visor was still stiff and the buttons still on, not shapeless and bulged as it would have been if it was served a while with all the various purposes of cap, carrying sack, towel, handkerchiefs. His suit was a cheap gray handkerchief and so new that there were still creases on the trousers. His blue chambray shirt was stiff and smooth with filter. I'm just gonna look that word up too, because I don't know off the top of my head what chambray is. Okay. His blue chambray shirt was stiff and smooth with filler. The coat was too big, the trousers too short, for he was a tall man. The coat, shoulder peaked, hung down onto his arms, and even the sleeve was too short, and in front of the coat flapped loosely over his stomach. He wore a pair of new tan shoes, of the kind called Army Last, hobnailed and with half circles like horseshoes to protect the edges of the heels from wear. This man sat on the running board and took off his cap and mopped his face with it. Then he put on the cap and pulled straight into the future rain of his visor. His feet caught his attention. He leaned down and loosened the shoelaces and did not tie the ends again. Over his head, the exhaust of the diesel engine whispered in quick puffs of blue smoke. The music stopped in the restaurant, and a man's voice spoke from the loudspeaker, but the waitress did not hear him, for she didn't know the music had stopped. Her exploring fingers had found a lump under her ear. She was trying to see it in the mirror behind the counter without letting the truck driver know, and she pretended to push a bit of hair to neatness. Wow, so they even describe she felt a little lump behind her ear, so it was what, was she worried about cancer? Was she worried about a pimple or something? Anyways, that's cool. That's cool that they said something like that in there. Really makes the world feel real. So she pretended to push a bit of hair to neatness. The truck driver said, "There was a big dance in Shawnee." Nah, that's too close to Tom's. I gotta give a different voice. "Well, there was a big dance in Shawnee. I heard somebody got killed or something. You hear anything? Question mark." "No," said the waitress, and she lovingly fingered the lump under her ear. Lovingly fingered the lump on her ear. Now, ain't that a fucking sentence? Outside, the seated man stood up and looked over the cowl of the truck. The cowl, C-O-W-L. C-O-W-L. Outside, the seedy man stood up and looked over the coat of the truck and watched the restaurant for a moment. Then he settled back on the running board, pulled a sack of tobacco and a book of papers from his side pocket. He rolled a cigarette slowly and perfectly, studied it, smoothed it, and at last he lit it and pushed the burning match into the dust at his feet. The sun cut into the dust of the truck as noon approached. In the restaurant, the truck driver paid his bill and put his 2 nickels change into the slot machine. The whirling cylinder gave him no score. "They're fixing them if you can't win nothing," he said to the waitress. And she replied, God took the jackpot not 2 hours ago. 380 got him. How soon you gonna be back? He held the screen door open a little. Week 10 days. Oh, it was a week. 10 days, he said. Gotta make a run to Tuzla. We've heard of Tuzla. We know where Tuzla is. And I'd never get him back soon as I think, she said crossly. They'll let the flies in. Either go out or come in. So long, he said, and he pushed his way out. The screen door hanged behind him, and he stood in the sun peeling the wrapper from a piece of gum. He was a heavy man, broad in the shoulders, thick in the stomach. His face was red and his blue eyes long and slanted, from having squinted always at sharp lights. He wore army trousers and high-laced boots, holding the stick of gum in front of his lips as he called through the screen. Well, don't you think nothing you don't want me to hear about? Wait. That was a woman speaking. I guess the waitress is still relevant. Well, don't do nothing you don't want me to hear about. That's such a way with words. Don't do nothing you wouldn't want me to hear about. So put that down somewhere. Perfect. Do nothing. Or I'm getting back into it. I had to put that down. It's important to me to keep myself tip top. Rolled it under his tongue while he walked to the big truck. Oh, I see. Well, don't do nothing you don't want me to hear about. The waitress turned towards the mirror on the back wall. She grunted a reply. The truck driver gnawed down the stick of gum slowly, opening his jaws and lips wide with each bite. He shaped the gum in his mouth, rolled it under his tongue while he walked to the big red truck. The hitchhiker stood up and looked across through the windows. Could you give me a lift, mister? Oh, I've missed doing Tom's voice ever since he left. Question mark? The driver looked quietly back at the restaurant for a second. Didn't you see the no rider sticker in the windshield? Sure, I seen him. But sometimes a guy's gotta be a good guy if some rich bastard makes him carry a sticker. The driver, getting slowly into the truck, considered the parts of his answer. If he refused now, not only would he not be a good guy, if he was forced to carry a sticker, was he not allowed to have company? If he took the hitchhiker, he was automatically a good guy. And also, he was not one whom any rich bastard could kick around. He knew he was being trapped, but he couldn't see a way out, and he wanted to be a good guy. He glanced again at the restaurant. Scrounge down on the running board till we get around the bend, he said. The hitchhiker Can't believe we're still calling him the hitchhiker. Better get Tom's name in here ASAP. The hitchhiker flopped down out of sight and chunged to the door. Yeah, C-U-N-G. Chunged to the door. Chunged to the door handle. The motor roared up for a moment. The gears clicked in, and the gray truck moved away. First gear, second gear, third gear, and then the high whining pickup in fourth gear. Under the clinging man, the highway blurred dizzily by. It was a mile on the first turn in the road. Then the truck slowed down. The hitchhiker stood up, eased the door open, and slipped into the seat. The driver stood over at him, slinting his eyes, as he chewed as thought by thought of impersonations were being sorted and arranged by his jaws before they were finally followed away into his brain. What a fucking sentence. His eyes began at the new cap, moved down the new clothes onto the new shoes. The hitchhiker squirmed his back against the seat of comfort, took off his cap and swabbed his sweating forehead and chin with it. "Thanks, buddy," he said. "My dogs was all pooped out." "New shoes?" said the driver. I'm just going to keep giving this driver random accents until he goes away. I know he's going away. His voice had the same quality of scarcity and insinuation his eyes had. You ought to take no walk in those new shoes. Hot weather around here." The hiker looked down at the dusty yellow shoes. "Didn't have no other shoes," he said. "Guy gots to wear 'em if we gots no other." The driver squinted judiciously ahead and built up the speed of the truck a little. "Going far? ? Uh-huh. I'd have walked if my dogs wasn't pooped out." The question of the driver had the tone of a subtle examination. He seemed to spread nets, to set traps with his questions. "Looking for a job? ? He asked. "No, my old man got a place. 40 acres. He's a gropper. We've been there for a long time." The driver looked significantly at the fields across the roads where the corns were falling sideways and the dust were piled on it. Little flints showed through the dusty soil. The driver said, as though to himself, "A 40-acre crop and he ain't been dusted out and he ain't been tracted out?" "Of course I ain't heard lately," said the hitchhiker. "Long time?" said the driver. A bee flew into the cab and buzzed in back of the windshield. The driver put his hand out carefully, drove the bee into the airstream, and blew it out of the window. "Crop is going out fast now," he said. "One cat'll take 'em and shovel 10 families out. Cats all over hell now. Test in and shovel the croppers out. How's your old man holding up? ? His tongue and his jaw became busty with the neglected gum. Turned it and chewed it. With each opening of his mouth, his tongue could be seen flipping the gum over. "Well, I ain't heard lately. I never was no hand to write, nor my old man either," he added quickly. "But both of us could, if we wanted." "Been doing a job? ? Again, the secret investigating casually continued. He looked out over the fields and at shimmering air, and gathering his gum into his cheek, out of the way, he sped out of the window. "Sure have," said the hitchhiker. "Thought so. I've seen your hands. Been a swinging a pick and an axe and a sledge. That shines up your hands. I notice all stuff like that. Take pride in it." The hitchhiker stared at him. The truck tires sang onto the road. "Like to know anything else? ? I'll tell you. You ain't got to guess." "I don't get sore. I wasn't getting nosy. I'll tell you anything. I ain't hiding nothing. Now don't get sore. I just like noticing things. Makes the time pass." See, like, when this was happening, it was making me think that, like, whoever this guy was, the hitchhiker, we didn't know it was Tom at the first read. I thought it was going to be like some serial killer. I don't like reading, like, previews and all that stuff to try to see if like a book's going to be worth it. Like I just get straight into there and just fucking dive deep. I'm gonna let you know at the end if this book was worth the fuck. But for right now, I haven't even read any books like that besides like manga and like comics and things that really aren't true literature like that. You know, you had me read The Mice and Men. I had me read The Mice and Men, but as far as other big books, you know, whatever school I'd be doing, like To Kill a Mockingbird. That's really it. To Kill a Mockingbird was one of the true books that I remember reading in school. Anything before that was just like out of my own volition and careless thought. Anyways, clink, clink, clink. I'll tell you anything. Name's Joel. Tom Joel. Old man's named Tom Joel. Hydration check. Please do not forget. His eyes rested broadeningly onto the driver. Don't get sore. It mean nothing. It mean nothing neither, said Joel. Said Joel, give this man his respect. This Tom here, yeah, the Joel family, don't get me wrong, but even Noah left us. I ain't trying to spoil, my bad. I'm just trying to get along without shoveling nobody around. He stopped and he looked out at the dry fields and starved tree clumps hanging uneasily onto the heated distance. From his side pocket, he brought out his tobacco and papers. He rolled a cigarette down between his knees where the wind could not get it. The driver chewed as rhythmically, as thoughtfully as a cow. What a fucking... This book is like rich with sentences. He waited to let the whole emphasis of the preceding passage disappear and be forgotten. At last, when the air seemed neutral again, he said, "A guy that's never been in a truck, Skinner, don't know nothing what it's like. Owners don't want us to pick up nothing. We got to sit here and just skinner along. Unless we want to take a chance of getting fired like I just done with you." Appreciate it. See, even back then, like, they wouldn't even say the full word appreciate. I don't even do that. I'd be like, appreciate it. I'd be doing that. Way before I even freaking read this book. Way before I even knew people back then would talk like this. Appreciate it. Said Joel. Page 10. I've known guys that done scrawny things while they were driving trucks. I remember a guy used to make up poetry. It passed the time. He looked over secretly to see whether Joel was interested or amazed. Joel was silent, looking into the distance ahead along the white road that waved gently, like a ground swell. The driver went on at last. I remember a piece of poetry this here guy wrote down. It was about him and a couple other guys going on over the world drinking and raising hell and screwing around. I wish I could remember how the piece went. That guy had words in it that Jesus H. Christ. Jesus H. Christ. Was it Jesus Hallelujah Christ? Jesus Hell Christ? I know that sounds really bad. I don't know what the H was for. Jesus H. Christ. Wouldn't know what they meant. Part was like this. And there was a spy nigger with a trigger that was bigger than an elephant's proboscis or a swanger of a whale. That proboscis is like a nose. With the elephant, it's like truck. Oh, shoot, it was a quote within a quote. I apologize. That proboscis is a nose like fucking predator. With the elephant in his truck. Guy's showing me in a dictionary. Carry that dictionary all over hell with them. He looking at while he pulled up, getting a pint coffee. He stopped and, feeling lonely in the long speech, his secret eyes turned to his passenger. Joe remained silent. Nervously, the driver tried to force him into precipitation. Even knew a guy that said big words like that? Preacher, said Joel. He's talking about Casey. Well, it makes you mad to hear a guy use big words. Of course, with a preacher, it's all right because nobody would fool around with a preacher anyways. But this guy was funny. Didn't give a damn what he said a big word because he just done it for ducks. He wasn't putting on no dog. The driver was reassured. He knew it was least that Joel was listening. He swung the gray truck viciously around a bend, and the tires shrilled. Like I was saying, he continued, guys that drive a truck do scrawny things. I got to. He'd go nuts just sitting around in the roads, sneaking under the wheels. Fella says once that the truck skinners eat all the time in hamburger joints along the roads. Sure seems to live there, Joe agreed. Sure they starve, but it ain't to eat. They ain't hardly ever hungry. They're just so goddamn sick all the time. Get sick of it. Joints is the only place you can pull up. And when you stop, you gotta buy something so you can sling the bowl with the board behind the counter. So you got a cup of coffee and a piece of pie. Kinda gives a guy a little rest. He chewed the gum slowly and turned it with his tongue. Must be tough, said Joel with no emphasis. The driver glanced quickly at him, looking for satire. Well, it ain't no goddamn shint. Fuck. Is that pinch, but it's just like the words fucking scrawny? No. Oh, I found my other set of words. Perfect. That was actually a best case scenario. Okay. S-I-N cinch? Is that what the word was? Yeah, cinch. Well, even though I could, kind of piece it together now, cinch, like, ain't a cinch to get done. Like, cinch itself is like, ain't no easy peasy. I'm still gonna look that word up just because I didn't recognize off the top of my head. The whole point in this whole thing is to really try to pull the most out of it the best I can. So if cinch gets past me, cinch is not getting past me ever again. He said testily, looking easy just saying here till you pull your 8 or maybe 10 or 14 hours. But that's the road gets into a guy. You gotta be doing something, some singing or some whistling. Company wanna let us have no radio. A few takes a pint along, but then kinda don't stick along. He says the last smugly. I'll never take a drink till I'm through. Yeah? Question mark. Joel asked. Yeah. Guy gots to get ahead. Why? I'm thinking of taking one of them correspondence school courses. Yeah, I just said correspondence like it wasn't shit. Mechanical engineering. It's easy. Just study a few easy lessons at home. I'm thinking of it. Then I won't drive no truck. I'll just tell other guys to go drive trucks. Joe took a pint of whiskey from his side coat pocket. Sure you won't have a snorts? His voice was testing. No, by God, I won't touch you. Excuse me. Oh my God. Forgive me, audience. No, by God, I won't touch you. I can't drink liquor all the time and study like I'm going to. Joel uncorked the bottle and took 2 quick swigs, recorked it, and put it back into his pocket. The spicy hot smell of the whiskey filled the cab. You're all wound up, said Joel. What's the matter? Got a girl? Question mark. Well, sure. But I want to get ahead, yeah. I've been training my mind for a hell of a long time. The whiskey seemed to loosen Joel up. He rolled another cigarette and lighted it. I ain't got a hell of a lot further to go. We fuck with you, Tom. Alright, we're at the 50-minute mark. We're going to keep going for another 10 minutes. The driver went quickly on. I don't need no shot, he said. I train my mind all the time. I took a course in that 2 years ago. He patted the steering wheel with his right hand. Suppose I pass a guy on the road. I look at him, and after I pass, I try to remember everything about him. Kind of clothes and shoes and hat, and how he walked, and maybe how tall and the weight and any scars. I do it pretty good. I can just make a whole picture in my head. Sometimes I think I ought to take a course to be a fingerprint expert. You'd be surprised how many guys can remember. How much a guy can remember. Joel took a quick drink from his flask. He dragged the last smoke from his revelating cigarette, and then, with calloused thumb and forefinger, he crushed it out with the glowing end. He rubbed the butt to a pulp and put it out the window, letting the breeze suck in from his fingers. The big tires sang a high note on the pavement. Joel's dark, quiet eyes became amused as he stared along the road. The driver waited and glanced uneasily over, and at last Joel's long upper lip grinned up from his teeth, and he chuckled slowly. His chest jerked with his knuckles. Oh, his chest jerked with his chuckles. You sure hell took him a long time to get it, buddy. The driver did not look over. Get to what? Question mark. How do you mean? Joel's lips stretched right over his long teeth for a moment, and he licked his lips like a dog. 2 licks, one in each direction from the middle. His voice became harsh. You know what I mean. Give me a going over when I first got in. I seen you. The driver looked straight ahead, gripped the wheel so tightly that the pads of his palms bulged, and the back of his hands paled. Joel continued. You know where I come from? The driver was silent. Don't you? Joel insisted. Well, sure. That is, maybe. But it ain't none of my business. I mind my own yard. I ain't nothing to you. The fuck is happening? I remember what's happening, but for convenience sake for you guys, the fuck is happening? And suddenly, he was silent and waiting, and his hands were still white on the wheel. A grasshopper flipped through the window and lied up on top of the instrument panel, where it sat and began to scrape its wings with an angel jumping legs. Joel reached forward and crushed its hard skull-like head with his fingers. Whoa, Tom. And he let it into the wind stream out of the window. Joel chuckled again while he brushed the bits of broken insects from his forefingers. You got me wrong, mister, he said. I ain't been keeping quiet about it. Sure, I've been in McAllister. Been there 4 years. Sure, these is the clothes they give me when I come out. Don't give a damn about who know it. I'm going to make my old man's place so I don't have to lie to get a job. The driver said, Well, that ain't none of my business. I ain't a nosy guy. The hell you ain't, said Joel. That big old nose of yours been sticking on 8 miles ahead of your face. You had that big nose going over me like a sheep in a vegetable patch. The driver's face tightened. You got me all wrong, he began weakly. Joel laughed at him. You've been a good guy. You gave me a lift. Well, hell, I done time. So what? You want to know what I done time for, don't you? Question mark. That ain't none of my affair. Nothing ain't none of your affair except skinning this here bull bitch right along. And that's the least thing you working at. Now look, set that road up ahead. Yeah? Well, I get off there, sure. I know you're wetting your pants to know what I've done. I ain't gotta let you know. I ain't gotta let you down. The high hum of the motor dulled and the song of the tires dropped in pitch. Joel got out his pint and took another short drink. The truck drifted to a stop where a dirt road opened at right angles to the highway. Joel got out and stood beside the cab window. His vertical exhaust pipe puttered up in barely visible blue smoke. Joel leaning towards the driver. Homicide, he said quickly. It's a big word. It means I killed a guy. 7 years ago, I sprung in four to keep my nose clean. The driver's eyes slipped over Joel's face to memorize it. I never asked you nothing about it, he said. I mind my own yard. You can tell about it in every joint from here to Teloka. Texola. That feels like a mix between Texas and Oklahoma. Tom smiled. So long, fella. You've been a good guy. But look, when you've been in a stir a little while, you can smell a question coming from a mile to breakfast. You telegraphed yours the first time you opened your trap. He spat at the metal door with the palm of his hand. Thanks for the lift, he said. So long. He turned away and walked into the dirt road. For a moment, the driver stared after him, and then he called, Look. Joel waved his hand without looking around, and then the motor roared up and the gears clicked and a great red truck rolled heavily away. Chapter 3, page 14. Got about 3 more minutes. We could probably cover another page or two. The concrete highway was edged with the matted, tangled, broken, dry grass, and the grass heads were heavy with old beards to catch on a dog's coat, the foxtails to tangle on a horse's fedlocks, and cover burrs to fasten sheep's wool. Sleeping life waited to the spread and despaired. Waiting to be spread and dispersed. Every seed armed with an application of dispersal. Man, they are really caring about this word disperse. Twisted darts and parachutes for the wind. Little spears and balls of tiny thorns, and all waiting for animals and for the wind. For a man's trousers cuff or a hem of a woman's skirt. All passive but armed with applications of activity. Still, by each possession of the allaying of movements. Okay, I've never seen that word either. Come on. A-N-L-A-G-E. Maybe looking that word up later. Find out what it means. But each possessed the anglate of movements. The sun laid on the grass and warmed it, and in the shade under the grass the insects moved. Ants and ant lions to set traps for them, grasshoppers to jump into the air and flick their yellow wings for a second. So bugs, like little armadillos, plodding restlessly on many tender feet, and over the grass at the roadside a little turtle crawled, turning aside for nothing, dragging his high domed shell over the grass. His hard legs and yellow-nailed feet threshed slowly through the grass, not really waking, but boasting and dragging his shell along. The barely beard slid off his shell, and clover birds fell on him and rolled on the ground. His horny beak was partly open, and his fierce, humorous eyes, under brows like fingernails, stared straight ahead. He came over the grass, leaving a beating trail behind him, and a hill where all the highway embankment reared up ahead of him. For a moment he stopped, his head held high. He blinked and looked up and down. At last he stared to climb the embankment. Front clawed feet reached forward but did not touch. The hind feet kicked his shell along, and it scraped over the grass and on the gravel. As the embankment grew steeper and steeper, the more frantic were the efforts of the land turtle. pushing hind legs strained and slipped, boasting the shell along, and the horny head protruded as far as the neck could stretch. Little by little, the shell slid up the embankment until at last a parapet cut straight across a line of march. The shoulder of the road, a concrete wall 4 inches high, as though they worked independently. The hind legs pushed the shell across the wall. The head upraised and peered over the wall to the broad, smooth plane of cement. Now the hands braced on top of the wall, strained and lifted, and the shell came slowly up and rested in front of the wall. For a moment the turtle rested. A red ant ran into the shell, and in the soft skin inside the shell, and suddenly head and legs snapped in, and the armored tail clamped it sideways. The red ant was crushed between the body and legs, and one head of a wild oats was clamped into the shell by a front leg. For a long moment the turtle laid still, and then the neck crept out, and the old, hideous, frowning eyes looked about, and the legs and tail came out. The back legs went to work, straining like elephant legs, and the shell tipped to an angle so that the front legs could not reach the level cement plane. But higher and higher the hind legs boosted it, until at last the center of balance was reached. The front tipped down, the front leg scratched at the pavement, and it was up. But the head of wild oats was held by its stem around the front legs. Not that the going was easy, and all the legs worked, and the shell boosted along, wagging from side to side. A sedan, driven by a 40-year-old woman, approached. She saw the turtle and swung to the right, off the highway. The wheels screamed, and a cloud of dust boiled up. 2 wheels lifted for a moment and then settled. The car skidded back onto the road and went on. But more slowly, the turtle had jerked into its shell. But now it hurried on, for the highway was burning hot. And now a light truck approached, and as it came near, the driver saw the turtle and swerved to hit it. Its front wheel struck the edge of the shell, flipped the turtle like a tiddlywink, spun it like a coin, and rode it off the highway. The truck went back to its course and along the roadside. Laying on its back, the turtle was tied in its shell for a long time. But at last its legs waved in the air, reaching for something to pull it over. Its front foot caught a piece of quartz, and little by little the shell pulled over and flopped upright. The quarter oats head fell out, and 3 of the spearhead seeds stem on the ground. And as the turtle crawled on down from the embankment, its shell dragged dirt over the seeds. The turtle entered a dusty road and jerked itself along, drawing a wavy, shallow trench in the dust with its shell. The old, humorous eyes looked ahead, and the horny beak opened a little. His yellow toenails slipped a fraction into the dust. Alright, y'all. Page 17, chapter 4, that's where we're going to end on. We got about 63 more pages till we're done with this completely. But until then... Smoke. Just like that, we are back on the Joel train. Tom just made it to where he got us to go, and he mentioned the preacher. We already know what's up. Anyways, y'all take care. My name is Otaku. Peace.